What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some brand new Destiny 2 news and updates to talk about in this video. So initially we are going to speak about the newest update to Destiny 2. Of course that fixed a bunch of things in the game, but it also broke a few things, so Bungie ended up taking D2 offline to try and fix the missing currencies and items. So we'll talk about what's going on there, but then we get new information about the Empyrean Foundation. So we know a little bit about the new mode that we're going to see, but then spoiler alert, we actually get a bit of a leak about Season 10, which is supposedly titled Season of the Worthy, so that's pretty interesting, and according to Datamined info, Trials of Osiris is set to return to the game then as well, and the Empyrean Foundation is actually going to be part of this, so we'll round up the new info. Obviously that is pretty exciting, but Bungie also helped to set our expectations about upcoming exotics, and then we have some new Crimson details and more in the video as well. So if you guys enjoy this one, a rating below really helps me out, but otherwise, let's get straight into it. Right, so before we speak about new content that we're going to be getting a little bit further down the road, initially yesterday Bungie did launch update 2.7.1, but following that update, a lot of players did report missing materials and items in their inventories. So of course Ascendant Shards, Glimmer, Prisms, and more managed to go missing, but Bungie did roll back some character data, which they said was to their most recent backup at 8:30 AM Pacific before the issue was introduced. And so for affected players, it will restore any lost materials caused by the issues. However, players may lose progress that they made if they played between 8:30 AM and 10:20 AM when they brought the game down for maintenance. On top of this, any purchases made using silver or bright dust during this window will need to be repurchased, and any of those currencies spent will be restored to characters. So bear that in mind, and of course the servers are now live, but the only currency that should remain to be affected would be silver really, and Bungie say that they will restore any silver spent. Now once again, before we go any further and talk about future content, DMG did give us a bit of a hint as to what we can expect with additional exotics inside of this season, but he did say, setting expectations here, there are no further exotic quests being released this season. The roadmap shows our final beats, the Empyrean Foundation effort begins next week, which we'll speak to soon, and then Crimson Days. And so there we have it. We certainly shouldn't expect a secret exotic of any sort, and I'm definitely curious to get your thoughts about that. However, Bungie have confirmed that in this week at Bungie, they'll be officially kind of talking about Empyrean Foundation. And so we've got a lot of official details yet to come, but we do have some new pretty big details about Empyrean Foundation, the Lighthouse, Trials, and Season 10, which is starting on March 9th. So initially, as part of the upcoming restoration effort, there will be a quest mission called Worthy. As of the update that we got in the game yesterday, this mode showed up and it is listed as an activity, but of course it may behave kind of like a social space or the tribute hall or something like that. It does however say that you can take in a fire team of 6 players, and when we look at the description, it reads, provide tremendous support toward the restoration effort and rekindle the lighthouse to usher in a new age of Guardians. This is visible in the database, but also some folks have actually had this mission pop up in the UI in-game. So Strongbad shared this image, although it has been witnessed by many other players as well. You can't actually boot the mission up, but it has the same description as what we saw in the database, and it tells us that the Empyrean Restorer Triumph needs to be completed to actually gain access to the mission. So that triumph in particular is to donate polarized fractaline to the Tower Obelisk to contribute toward the Empyrean restoration effort. And so it looks like we will need that 5k donation before we can actually access the worthy mission. But we're actually building, presumably, the original lighthouse from back in Destiny 1, and that's kind of the key focus of the restoration effort. However, we then got a pretty big leak from Jinsa, and Jinsa's a pretty well-respected and well-known data miner inside of the Destiny community. And looking through the text strings for the game, they tweeted this: with the restoration of the lighthouse complete, Trials of Osiris and more will return in Season of the Worthy. Now, that's a lot to take in all of a sudden, isn't it? Although once again, it's worth pointing out that Jinsa is a very reliable data miner, and so this is definitely something that is in the text files for the game. So on that basis, presumably, indeed, next season will be called Season of the Worthy, and Trials of Osiris, alongside other content, is actually going to be introduced into the game. It's interesting that it says Trials of Osiris and more will return in Season of the Worthy, and so I'm not sure if we'll get any other returning content. But obviously we are left with the theme, and even if Trials is going to be a part of the season, obviously it's entirely possible that the core theme could actually be associated with something else, since we've had Osiris and that Mercury theme over again this season. Of course, when Bungie teased Mercury when talking about the second pass installment, they also teased Rasputin when referring to the third installment. So that's pretty interesting, and there is a new image on the redeem code page for Bungie. Obviously it has that link to Rasputin, but we don't know if it's specifically linked to Season of the Worthy. And of course there is that thematic link to Trials there, right? Prove yourself worthy in the Trials of Osiris. And so yeah, let me know what you think about that. Obviously, this isn't confirmed information that Bungie have actually released, but these are things that have been data mined out of the game, which refer to the Empyrean Foundation specifically, and then to Season of the Worthy, alongside that game mode, which is also called Worthy, and the Trials of Osiris. So yeah, with what Bungie have teased, I think it's pretty certain that this is what we're going to be getting. So let us know your thoughts about that. Obviously, the Empyrean Foundation is going to be a pre-Season 10 event that kind of leads into that season. And one of the big tasks, once again, that we'll need to complete is to donate 5,000 Fractaline to unlock the final triumph for this season, but also to fully contribute to the Foundation and presumably get any additional rewards that it may house. It looks like various different obelisk rewards will unlock at the Tower Obelisk, potentially as part of this event, but additional item drops would include things like Empyrean Light, where light generated by the Tower Obelisk and the power it gathers from other obelisks may be used to fuel the Empyrean restoration effort, or to purchase buffs, consumables, and pursuits for the restoration, which are generated weekly. And so there will be a bunch of different kind of focus objectives. But we also have light fused Fractaline, and this is an exotic item that can be used to increase the resonance rank of any obelisk by 1 full level during Season 9. And so there we go, a pretty important info drop, and a pretty big leak right there for the next season. But of course, with Bungie putting this stuff into the game in the update we had today, it's probably something they anticipated would actually get out before they make an announcement about the Foundation. It will also be interesting to see whether Bungie specifically mention the purpose of the Foundation before we actually get it in the game. So once again, give us your thoughts below. However, another piece of upcoming content is Crimson Days, and we do have just a couple of additional bits right here. So firstly, there is a new activity listed for Crimson Days. When I say new activity, of course, it could just be an updated activity or objective inside of the Crucible. And we've spoken about the Crimson Days Sparrow, which previously we could only really see one half of, but now we can see two different halves of it, and that's because they are two different sparrows. So we've got the SVC-12 and then the IVC-10, and as you can see, when you put the sparrows alongside each other, you'll create the full Crimson Days logo. Not sure if this will factor into any of the gameplay associated with the new event, but there is a new rare weekly bounty which is linked to the event, and this is currently the only one we've had updated into the game. It basically requires you to complete Crimson Days bounties, but we can see that it rewards 75 confectionery hearts, and so that currency is returning for this event. But also Bright Dust will drop from the bounty, as well as double XP, so that'll definitely be interesting. But I'm most curious to see if there's any kind of change to the core focus of what Crimson Days is. Although it does look like it will be a similar event, and there is a new promotional image somewhere in the game for an ornament for the Vow inside of the Eververse store. So that's not to say that we absolutely won't get a new weapon for Crimson this year, but it looks like the Vow, kind of like the Avalanche inside of the Dawning, will once again be featured for this event. Let us know what you think about that. But up next, it does appear that there's potential for Destiny 2 to be getting some more Twitch Prime loot. So Paul Tassi tweeted, "Get exotic and legendary gear with Twitch Prime," and this is a screenshot from the front page of Twitch earlier on today. We don't know the details specifically about that just yet. Of course, Bungie haven't officially announced it, but JP Deathblade did share a preview of what some of the rewards could look like, so we do see some exotic weapons like Prospector, Prometheus Lens and Soros Regime, as well as kind of basic ornaments for them, and then otherwise other exotic and legendary items, some of which you'd typically get from Eververse, so it's definitely interesting. We'll have to wait for Bungie's official announcement, but definitely give us any thoughts you have about that below. Now though, let's talk about Destiny Update 2.71. There were a few different patch notes, so Bungie improved a whole bunch of performance problems inside of the Pit of Heresy, and that includes reduced frame rates in the Chamber of Suffering, players dying when transitioning between encounters, and out-of-map glitches inside of the space as well. They've also improved performance inside of the Garden of Salvation, and they've reduced the weekly completions needed inside of the Nightfall Ordeal to bring it in line with other challenges. So now players need 3 completions on Adept difficulty, 2 in Hero, or 1 completion on Legend or Master to get that weekly milestone done. For weapons, the seasonal bow mods should now work reliably with Hush. Of course, they did buff the Breakneck, as well as adjusting the camera shake on hardlight. And then there are gameplay changes, so they fixed a problem where the Roaring Flames perk was buffing solar weapon damage while standing in a well of radiance. A problem where Titans could self-heal by bouncing a throwing hammer off a wall. A problem that prevented Warlocks from using blink after switching weapons or cancelling sprint. And then issues that would sometimes cause the Sunbreaker's Titan Mortar Blast to deal little to no damage. And a glitch that allowed Titans to get stacks of Roaring Flames by destroying Telesto projectiles. They also increased the Sunbreaker Titan's Mortar Blast damage by 70% in PvE, and adjusted a few different things with mods as well. So for example, the ever-ready Dawn mod will now stack correctly, with weapon dexterity leg armor mods applicable to the weapon it covers. As well as this, the heavy-handed door mod will no longer trigger after the death of Telesto bolts, and then Grenade Launcher Scavenger will no longer award special ammo for grenade launchers when the player picks up primary ammo blocks. And Gunsmith will now properly assess the owned status of unflinching machine gun and hand cannon mods. If there are any other specific things that you want to check out in the patch notes, once again, I'll link those down below. But for today's video, guys, that's everything we've got to round up. So obviously pretty interesting stuff about Season of the Worthy and a return of Trials. So once again, give us your thoughts about that. But if you've enjoyed the video, a rating is super appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to get subscribed so I can keep you up to date with everything related to the game. Otherwise though, guys, whatever you get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.